It gives me great pleasure to have a guest on our channel today. He's a friend, bandmate for over 25 years or so, amazing musician and producer of all things Zappa Vault. Hi, Joe.
Hey, man.
Thank you for doing this and being part of our channel.
Sure.
You know, I've known you for years, and I've known a lot of the things that you've done over the years that are amazing, and the talents and things that go into it, and all the tours we've done and everything together has been such a joy. I wanted to ask you about what was the thing that really started you on the journey of music? What was the thing that got you into music in the first place?
Well, I was born with it. I didn't have a choice at all. I was born in a musical family, and genetically I just acquired the language. It just made sense to me, you know. There are just certain things in life that you are gifted with, and, you know, I will be the first to say that I was gifted with rhythm and understanding what drums are all about. I wish that I could understand a little bit more clearer about music theory and playing a guitar or a piano or something like that. But I really just kind of focused on drums throughout my years. And then, of course, as I got older, I started to understand music more without just thinking about drums. But yeah, I had no choice. You know, I grew up in an extremely musical family. My mom was a singer. My dad was a drummer. My grandfather was a drummer. My cousins were drummers. My uncles were drummers. And I just, you know, was completely surrounded by that growing up. And so it just completely made sense to me.
You were inspired by it.
At an incredibly early age, it was just music all the time. Just music all the time. That was what my family did on their off time, was spin vinyl. They were playing records all the time. You know, and so it was always music. So I really didn't have a choice. It was what spoke to me really early on.
Okay. So would you say that is the defining moment in like, you know, choosing a career for you in music, or did that come later?
No, I you know, when I was younger, when I was like a teen and stuff like that, I mean, I used to constantly envision myself as a professional musician. Obviously, I would fantasize about being a rock star. And, you know, I grew my hair long and wanted to be in a band and tour the world and be successful and make a living doing that kind of thing. You know, I grew up with a whole genre of music that was like a comic book come to life, you know. Glitter rock in 1972, 1973, into Kiss, you know, into that kind of stuff. I mean, I was just like Alice Cooper, you know, like the fantasy world of rock and roll, you know, the makeup and the glamour and the glitz and the heavy riffs and stuff. I was just like drawn to that like a magnet. And so that was my first love. But as I got older, you want to talk about inspiration, just good music and being a good musician was the most important thing for me. So it went from wanting to be a rock star to just wanting to be a really good, competent musician. And that's why I chose to go to college, you know, for school for it, so that I could round out my talent and not just have, you know, not just be a one-shot deal. So I knew really early on that music was going to be like my focus. I wasn't going to be an airline person. I wasn't going to be a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that. It was going to be music. I wanted to take my gift and just utilize it as much as possible. And that's what I did. You know, that's what I did. It's just the only thing that made sense.
Nice. So it all starts with a dream with all of us, I think, you know, the desire, that thing that comes up for you is, wow, I'd love to do this. And as kids, I feel like we don't really think about, you know, what's possible and what's not. And at that stage in our lives, we're not facing any, you know, issues with life. We're not, you know, having to worry about paying rent and things like that, you know. So those thoughts that we have are generally happy thoughts. and there's nothing attached to them as far as conditions, so I believe that that's why we manifest things in our lives. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. And when I was young, I was a dreamer. I fantasized constantly. I grew up in an age where rock and roll and, Star Wars and comic books and Marvel and action figures. And, I was just like that kid. I was living in that world like all the time. And so I just was just like really super, super creative and just kind of like fantasizing all the time about, I wouldn't take it back though, because I'll tell you, like, those were fun days and everything, but like to be able to fantasize about what you would like to do with your life someday and then actually achieve those goals and make that happen. You talk about manifestation and making all that stuff happen. It's like you worked hard to get there, so let's enjoy that now,
Yeah, I think, but I think the enjoyment also and the attitude you take towards it helps a lot, and it's almost like you put yourself in the seat where what you see is going to happen with you. You put yourself there, and that becomes your focus, and that becomes your drive.
Yeah, well, I always would set goals for myself, or at least goals that seemed realistic to me and not unrealistic. And so I was always very, very determined to achieve what I thought I could do. Like if I could feel it in my soul and in my heart that I knew that I could do something, and if I really set my mind to it, I would do it. And I think a lot of people can do that if they, can really clearly understand what they want to do in their lives. If they have the right attitude and if they put their mind to it, there's room for them in this world. There's room for that to happen. There's constant generations of people filtering through the world, finding their time and finding their space in whatever it is that they choose. So if you want something bad enough, and as long as you're not an asshole, you can get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great to know that, how your side of how that happened for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was on a mission.
Yeah.
Because I really was like so determined to become professional. Because I saw it so clearly in front of me. Like I knew that I had talent. I knew that I had the right attitude, and I knew that I was capable of building a network. And I knew the process of what you have to go through in order to make that stuff happen. Because I had already moved from Pennsylvania to Boston, and that was a big move. And I knew what it was like to meet new people, build your name, let the talent do the talking, people get attracted to your talent. And so by the time I made the decision to move to Los Angeles, it was like doing that entire process all over again. And I had already done it, right? So it wasn't new. It was like, I know the drill. I know the drill, and I am going to go out there and I'm just going to do this.
You're more familiar with it, and you can just fall into place.
Exactly. Yep.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. It was amazing times, but when you're in your early 20s, it's like you can do anything.
Yeah.
It gets harder and harder when you get older, but when you're in your early 20s, you're healthy and you are hungry and you're ready.
Invincible.
You're just ready for whatever's going to come around the corner. You have to just be like ready to take it all on, the good and the bad. And you just make your way through it and give it a shot. And if you take your best shot, you'll have no regrets, because you can't look back on it and be like, God, why didn't I do this or this and that and the other thing. It's just like, do it and then deal with it later.
We were talking about the happy moment, sort of that dreamy, thing that you go through that gives you visions and things about what you want to do in the future and all that. But that's also sort of like what we do in music. Once we once we learn how to play music and once we get into composing music, there's a process that happens that's also based on that belief, feeling of, being able to do it, but also letting go enough so that the music sort of comes through us. Do you believe in that at all?
I do. It's a gift. I am personally not a songwriter per se. I don't have the gift of songs twirling around in my head. And I mean, I can hear melodies and I can sing melodies, but I mostly collaborate with people in order to get those things across and in a form that makes sense. But, there is a talent to being a songwriter and being able to grab things out of thin air and mold them and turn them into a composition. That's something that I am not familiar with, but, some people can do that, some people can't. And, you were talking also about dreams and, how when you're younger, you have these visions. And for me, I was a kid, I was dreaming, I was fantasizing. I had I kind of knew what I wanted to do. That's really special. There are so many people in the world that don't have that kind of direction at a young age. So sometimes people don't know what to dream about. They don't know what to manifest. They just kind of cruise. And then at that point, life will present opportunities to them, So if you don't have a talent or something that you can focus on and nurture, right? Then you have to be open for life to bring opportunities to you and not be closed-minded. You just have to, because it's a gift to be able to have a clear vision of what you want to do at a really young age, I was kind of really glad that I had that kind of vision and focus at such a young age, because it did help when the time came to make decisions on what I wanted to do, But again, when it gets back to songwriting, I wish that I could do that in a much more conventional way. Just, like you, just hear things, grab them, expand on them, mold them, turn them into ideas, and then, create compositions. That's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. And you know what else is beautiful too, is that if you actually can do that, and then you put that intellectual property out into the world, and it actually is successful, and the next thing you know, you're playing live, and people are singing your songs back to you from the audience. And to think that all started inside your head one day, and you were motivated by the things that motivate you to, you were saying about letting it happen and letting it flow and letting ideas turn into things and being open to that. That whole process is amazing. But once you do all that process and you come up with something, and then you give that something to the world, if you're lucky enough to have that come back at you, what an amazing feeling that must be.
It is. Wow. Yeah, that definitely is.
Yeah.
But also the joy of the creations, the composers that we like, the music that we like to listen to. And that in itself inspires us, because there is magic there,
Especially if you enjoy composing.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, like Frank Zappa would sit there with a ballpoint pen and devote time to just literally artwork.
Yeah.
Just putting dots on paper and creating these things that are swirling around in his head and making it manifest into a piece of paper. Today, that process is either just by utilizing your instrument and recording yourself, or typing it in into a computer. You know what I'm saying? Like Finale or any of those types of things, So imagine what he would be able to do now with the technology that we have, and what everyone had to do back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Just insane. But yeah, I mean, if you enjoy the process of creating, then, you've got half the battle won right there, because you can just keep on keeping on. And then hopefully, there's there's an outlet for your creations. There's an outlet for the time that you spend creating the things that it's one thing to enjoy creation of things, but it's another thing to benefit from your creations, so that you can continue to do that.
Right. Well, I think it becomes an addiction with some people, and they figure out how to make it. They figure out how to continue to do that, you know? So, and we've all witnessed it, you know, in bands we played in, with artists we played in. And going back to the subject of composition in general, with you, because you have listened to so much music and taken in all that stuff and just kind of and growing with it, and you played all kinds of music as well, you know, having that experience, you can pretty much just like sing whatever part, and so if somebody can make it happen, then great. So in that sense, you are a composer.
True, but you're being reliant on collaboration with somebody. And so there's a difference between being self-sufficient and then also being able to utilize somebody's talent to help you, create your visions, right? And the thing is like, it's hard because when you are reliant on somebody, and if you have a very strong desire to create, but you need to have resources in order to do that, because most people that are songwriters, they can just do it all themselves. And that's an amazing talent. Then you feel like you don't want to take advantage of their time. So that's when finances become involved, because you're thinking like, well, I don't want to ask somebody to do this with me unless, you know, they feel that they're going to benefit from it, not just from having something to do with that creation, but also like they're taking time out of their lives to do something for you. So they should at least be able to get, you know, so then you don't want to feel guilty about not offering either finances or writing credit, and it just keeps going. So sometimes you have to really kind of weigh out your options. How strong of a desire is it to have your own CD or your own album or your own tunes, right? And how, where does that fall in the priority of your life because of the other things that you do? For me, unfortunately, I don't prioritize it as much as I should because I am too busy playing other people's music on the drums or working on Frank Zappa's legacy, which has always been extremely important to me. So I always prioritize that. But, you know, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking like, gosh, it sure would be cool if I could just scratch that itch, which is the itch of being creative and the process of being creative and creating your own intellectual property, having your own music, presenting it to the world, not expecting anything from it, but you do it because you want to.
You love it, yeah.
But it costs money to do that.
I know.
You know?
I know.
So you have to gotta kind of weigh it out, you know, like, you know. That's what I mean about the gift of people that don't have to worry about the things that I have to worry about in order to be creative, right? Because they just do it. They don't have to worry about money. They don't have to worry about collaborating with other people. They do it. And gosh, is that amazing, you know? It's just great. It's people have things that they do. And for those people that are songwriters, that's what they do. If they can make a living from that, that's an unbelievable bonus, you know? Some people are good at operating on people. Some people are good with numbers and finances and CPAs and accountants and all that shit. So, you know, everybody's got their things in life. And for me, you know, first and foremost, I've always just been a drummer. So.
But also a heavy listener.
And I do have
heavy
that going
curiosity.
for me.
You've had, like, obviously a heavy curiosity since you were a kid to check out all kinds of stuff.
Because of the environment that I grew up in, music was everywhere. And music talks to me. Music's my favorite thing in the world. It's my best friend. And it has gotten me through 55 years of life. And I'm never going to turn my back on it. It's my number one thing in this world is music. If I didn't have music, I would be insane. And it's just the best thing. Music is the best. I wonder where we heard that from before.
Yeah.
But it's really true. It's really true. And I've spent so much time in my life researching, learning about different styles of music and loving it. You know, finding what makes my body what resonates in me, finding out all these different people, and being turned on by all sorts of different music throughout the world. I mean, I can remember when I discovered, things that people might not really know that much about. Young kids, they get hooked on Tool, they get hooked on Metallica, they get hooked on Taylor Swift, and they don't expand, or because they just haven't been exposed to it yet. But I was completely open to, especially when I was in Boston at Berkeley, I just was a sponge for learning about new music. Not new music, but things that I missed, like Oscar Peterson or the Meters, or whatever. Like when I was growing up, I was listening to a lot of rock and roll. I wasn't exposed to a lot of jazz, and so I was just like, I wasn't like closed-minded, because I love music so much. I just wanted to hear it all and then make decisions on whether or not I liked it, if it was going to stick with me, or if I was going to come back around to it later in life and understand it better, So, but that process has been unbelievable. And now I'm 55 years old, and, I'm not going to say that I would consider myself an amateur musicologist.
No.
That's how much time I've spent.
I think you're
focusing on music.
More than that. Way more than that. Your knowledge and experience in heavy listening for years and years have brought you to the point where you have a lot to offer as a player. And I think you make a great producer, because you can hear anything in your head, and what sounds right with anything, sort of, you have a good sense of that.
Thanks.
And it's like, because of your love for it and gratitude for it, I think the universe just gives you more and more back.
That's right. Yeah. But I am pretty humble
so it's
too.
A beautiful thing.
I don't ever consider myself being some kind of expert. I just know what moves me and what works for me, and I just kind of go with that. And it just seems to work.
I'm really grateful that I got the chance to meet you and Brian Beller the time I did, when we were playing with Janet Robin.
1998?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, or 6. I can't remember if it was 96 or 98, but yeah, see, our pathways our pathways crossed, and that's what life is like, like by 1996, I had been in town or 98, let's say. I've been in town since 1992 in Los Angeles. And when I moved to LA in 1992, I would have never known that I would have met you.
Yeah.
But when you're open to things just happening to you in life, and you just get on your pathway, and you let your instrument do the talking, and musically you just start, doing what you do, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know where you're going to go, where you're going to end up. And, music has taken me to unbelievable places in this world, spiritually, mentally, and physically.
Of course.
And the people that you meet along the way, you always clutch on to the ones that inspire you, that are good friends, that musically you will constantly share. You and I have a brotherhood, I feel, and Brian Beller as well, and Mike Keneally as well. And it's amazing that we all play together, but we're also just best friends too. And I think that that is super important in life, to be able to have those types of things in your life, because a lot of people can like alienate themselves or isolate themselves, or maybe they're even just like so involved in their relationships that they don't really have time for friends, or they're just like tunnel vision with what they do, what they create, and they don't really, they have to just focus on their art and all that stuff. But that's never been me. I've always been like, like just out there trying to meet as many people as possible and get as much musical information from as many different amazing people out there. I mean, there's amazing musicians everywhere you turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's been an absolute blessing that you and I have been able to continue to be, musical brothers for so long now. It's been, like you said, over 25 years. It's great. I mean, let's really think about it. If it was 1996, 2006, 2016, 17, 89. Yeah, it's been like 27 years.
27 now, yeah. Well, for me, it just seemed like the universe brought me that stuff. At some point, I was wishing that I would be playing with better players. As I was growing up, I'd sort of like done a bunch of stuff musically outside of LA. But when I moved to LA, it was like, I want to do more, I want to further my dreams. And at that point, I was like, I just want to play with really good players, really good musicians. And I want to be able to feel that magic, and I want to be like the weakest guy in the band or the whatever to like learn and soak up more stuff, and just be inspired. And then you and Brian came along in Janet's band, and I was like, wow, these guys are good. I want to play with them all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what started happening. It was like, the universe brought us together.
That's right.
And then we became, obviously after a few hundred gigs, we became incredible friends, and now it's like a family.
Yeah, and we're still playing together.
Yeah. So that's amazing.
Yeah, well,
We have a lot to be grateful for.
we absolutely do. It's all a gift. It's all great.